Hello, welcome to the Bellingcat Starter Series. This series is aimed at non-technical researchers and journalists and should help you overcome the technical barriers when using some of Bellingcat's research tools. In films and TV, you'll see hackers typing code on their computers and lines of text whizzing past too quickly to tell what's going on. It does look impressive though. In reality, we call this the command line, and it's much less exciting than it is in the movies. But it can be really useful to know how to use it in your work as a researcher or journalist. If you want to gather data in bulk from Instagram or analyze TikTok hashtags, there are loads of tools available that allow you to do that. However, these tools often don't have nice graphical user interfaces, as these take a lot more effort for programmers to develop. Instead, to use these tools, we have to access the computer directly, using the command line. My name's Galen Reich, Tech Community Lead at Bellingcat, and this is an introduction to the command line in Windows. You might be here because you want to use a tool for an investigation, or because you want to start with coding, or maybe you just need a bit of a refresher. Whatever the reason, we've got you covered. In this video, we're going to go over the background of the command line, discussing what the command line is and why you might want to use it. Then we'll cover some of the fundamentals of the command line, including how to open, understand, and interact with one. We'll go on to break down the different structural parts of a command before showing you a few important tips and tricks. Finally, we'll round out the video with a primer on dealing with errors and how you can get yourself unstuck in the case that you encounter one. As a reminder, this video focuses on the Windows command line. All the commands we're going to cover are the same, but there are a few differences that might make it harder to follow this video if you're using a Mac. It's used because it's often easier for coders to create a tool that you can use on the command line than it is to create a beautifully designed graphical program. One nice detail about the command line is that it doesn't require you to download some new program. It's already built in to your computer. But when might you use it? If you wanted to use a tool to check a phone number and see if it was connected to a Telegram account, say, there's a good chance that that type of tool would only be available on the command line. And this is definitely true for lots of Bellingcat's tools, and we know it's one of the challenges for researchers and journalists. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be a bit more familiar with the command line and be able to run a few commands for yourself. Let's launch our first command line interface, sometimes called a terminal or a shell. I'm going to open the Start menu by clicking on it. Yours might be in the middle of the screen, but don't worry about it, it's exactly the same thing. Then I'm going to click on where it says Search and type PowerShell. In the search pane, you'll see that there are several results. These are all different types of command line. We want the one that's labeled Windows PowerShell, not the one with ISE after it, not the one with ×86 after it, just Windows PowerShell. Click on that and you'll have opened your first command line window. Let's talk about what we're looking at. On the left, you can see it says PS. That's just telling us that we're in PowerShell and not in a different command line. You can generally ignore that. Then you'll see to the right of that is what we call the path. This tells you which folder on your computer the command line is focused on at the moment. So let's try a command. If you want to list the contents of a folder, you can type the command ls, short for list, and press enter. The command line responds to the command with text too, and you can see that it's listed the contents of the folder. We can compare that to what you might see in File Explorer by opening them up side by side. You can see that we have the same things listed. If we want to change which folder we're looking at to be in Documents, for example, we would usually click on it in File Explorer. On the command line, we have to instruct it to change directory with the command cd. So I'm going to type cd and then the name of the directory I want to change to, in this case, Documents. When I press enter, the command line doesn't look like it's done anything. It hasn't responded with any text, like the list command did. But look closer, you'll see that the path on the left has changed. We're now in the Documents directory. We can double check with ls again, and you can see the same contents as the File Explorer. Now let's try making a new directory with the command mkdir, an abbreviation of make directory. I'm going to make a directory called tutorial by typing the command mkdir followed by the name of the folder I want to create, and finally pressing enter. The command line tells us that the directory was created, and over in File Explorer, we can see that our new folder has appeared. We can verify that the new tutorial directory is there in the command line with ls. And we can change the directory to the tutorial directory with cd followed by the name of the directory. And I'm going to open it in File Explorer for consistency. Now, I'm going to quickly create a file for us to work with. Don't worry too much about this part. You probably won't need to do this. Think of it as some bonus content. I'm going to create a string of text in quotes. In this case, it's an invite link to our active Discord community, and I'm going to tell the command line to put it into a file called invite.txt. Then I'm going to use ls to check that it's there, and it is. So now that we have a file, we can start doing some simple operations on it. We can copy the file using the command cp, short for copy. We type the name of the file we want to copy, in this case invite.txt, and then we type the name of the copied file. So let's call it invitefriend.txt. We can do this as many times as we want, so I'll create another copy called invitefoe.txt, each time pressing return to send the command off. And then with ls, we can see that we have successfully made 2 copies of this file. But actually, I've changed my mind. I only want 1 copy of the file. I don't want to invite foes to the Discord community, so I'll have to remove one. I can do that with the rm command, which is short for remove. I just type rm and the name of the file I want to remove, press enter, and it's gone. I'm going to quickly make another directory with mkdir, and this time I'm going to call it Discord plan. This sits inside the tutorial folder we created earlier, and we know that because the path shown on the left. Now we've got this new folder, we can move one of our files into it with the move command, mv. Let's move invitefriend.txt into the Discord plan folder. So I'm going to type mv invitefriend.txt and then the location I want to move it to, in this case, Discord plan. With ls, we can see that invitefriend.txt has vanished from this directory. But how could we check that it's now in Discord plan? You might think that we would have to cd into the Discord plan directory and then use ls to check the contents. And that certainly would work, but we can actually use ls from where we are right now. To do that, we can type ls as we've been doing so far, but this time I'm going to add the Discord plan directory after it. This additional text is called an argument, and it modifies what ls does. And we can now see that invitefriend is in Discord plan. Okay, let's take a pause. That's a lot to take in. Let's recap. We've seen how the ls command can list the contents of a directory. We've used the cd command to change the directory our command line is focused on. We've seen how to use mkdir to make a directory. We've copied files with the cp command, and we've moved files with the mv command. Now, we've seen quite a few examples of commands being used, but we've not really talked about how they're structured yet. So let's take a look at the structure of entering a command now. Strictly speaking, the command itself is just the first word that you type, anything before that first space. In our case, that means ls, cd, mkdir, cp, and mv. Then anything that comes after that is an argument of the command. These arguments change how the command operates. We've seen that already with ls. On its own, ls shows the contents of wherever the command line is focused at the moment. That's known as the working directory. If you put a directory after ls, you've passed an argument to the command, and ls will list the contents of the directory that you've given as an argument instead. So Let's have a look at how to use arguments with some of the other commands too. When copying with CP, the command needs two arguments to work properly, a source and a destination. So far, when copying, we've been using a file as the source and a file as the destination. This creates a copy with a different name in the same directory, the current working directory. But you can also use a directory as a destination if you want to create a copy of the file in that other directory. You can even combine directories and file names. If you want to copy a file to a different directory and give it a different name. To do that, you just separate the directory and the file name with a backslash. You can even do this for multiple directories, but we'll leave that for now. Moving files with MV works really similarly to CP. We've been using two arguments, the source file and the destination directory, which moves the specified file into the directory. But what do you think would happen if we provided a file name instead of a folder for the destination? If we do that, we move the file from the working directory to the working directory. We don't move it at all, but we do change its name. So we can use MV to rename files, which can be a really handy trick. Let's jump back to the command line for the final details. So we've learned how to change directory with CD, but so far I've only told you how to open folders within the current directory. For example, here we are in the geolocations folder within my documents directory. With ls, you can see here that there is a directory called to do and another called completed. Let's change directory with cd into to do. We can see from the path that we've made it into to do, but how do we go back to where we just were in geolocations? We want to change directory, but we want to go one level up. There's a special way of doing this in the command line. The folder above the current directory is referred to by two dots. So if I type cd space ... and press enter, that will take me one level up. And we can see from the path that we're now in geolocations. Now I can use cd to go into the completed directory. And we can go back up a level to geolocations with cd ... Let's go quickly back into the completed folder. And we can see about how we can go about linking these steps together. Let's say we want to go straight to the to-do directory from the completed directory. How would we go about doing that? Well, I'd start by typing cd ... If I were to press enter now, it would just take me back to that geolocations folder one level up. Instead, though, I'm going to type backslash and then the name of the directory that I want to go into, namely to do. When I pressed enter, you'll see from the path that we've gone directly from completed to do. And this ... trick doesn't just work when changing directory, but also when moving and copying files. Let's have an example of that now. We know that we've got two files in this directory. By typing mv sildavia.jpg space ... /completed, we can move the Sildavia JPEG file directly to the completed folder from the to-do folder. The next useful thing to know about the command line is what's called the command history. Almost every command line has this feature, and it can save you typing out a long command over and over and over again. Simply by pressing the up arrow, you can cycle through the previous commands that you've run without having to type them out again. So here's the command I just ran, and here's the one before it. You can also use the down arrow to navigate the history in the other direction. So I'm going to press the down arrow to come forward by one command. You can edit the commands using the arrow keys to move the cursor or with backspace. I just press backspace and replace the to do with completed. By pressing return, you can see that's worked perfectly. And finally, the last trick I want to tell you about is a feature called autocomplete, which is a lot like the autocomplete on your phone, except on the command line, it completes with a valid command. So I'm going to type cd ... /, which would take me up one level, and I'm going to press the tab key. And this in PowerShell will show possible options for my command. If I press tab again, it's going to show me another option. And as I continue to press tab, you can see it cycles through the different options that are available to me with that command. That can definitely save a lot of typing. In the final part of this video, let's talk about errors. We've managed to avoid them so far, but error messages are an everyday part of using the command line. They can occur if you make a mistake when typing a command, or when a tool that you're using isn't up to date or set up correctly. Sometimes you'll get an error message if your internet connection drops out in the middle of running a command. Error messages are just the way that the command line can tell you that something hasn't worked properly, and they can be really useful for working out what went wrong. So, for the last time in this video, let's go to the command line and take a look at a few examples of error messages and how you can go about interpreting them. So I'm back in the to-do directory from earlier in the video, and ls shows me that it still contains one geolocation, bodoria.png. So I'm going to try and move it to the completed folder. Watch out for the mistake. I'm using the ... trick as before. When I press enter, we have an error. Now, it looks intimidating at first, but there's lots of information that we can immediately understand. Let's start from the top. It says MV. That means there was a problem with the move command. Okay, good to know, but in this example, we knew that already. Then it says cannot find path and lists a long file path before because it does not exist. We know that most of the path exists because we can see that that's our working directory. So the problem must be with the file we're trying to move, bodoria.png. Let's check that that file exists with ls. And we can see it does, but look, it wasn't a JPEG, which is what we typed. It was a PNG. No wonder the command line said it didn't exist, because what we typed didn't. We don't need to worry about going through the rest of the error message because we think we've worked out what's going on. I'm just going to press the up arrow to use the command history to get that command again, and we're going to just replace JPEG with PNG and try again. And it works without error. Let's check that it worked correctly, and I'm going to change directory into the completed directory. And running ls, we can see that the file was moved successfully. Now, as another example of an error, let's say that I'm not happy with my Bodoria geolocation. I want to move it back into my to-do folder. I'm going to try and move it back. So it's mv bodoria.png this time, space ... /to-do. Okay, looks good. Press enter and another error. So this time it says bodoria.png. That's odd. Before it only told us the name of the command. Why does it include that argument as well? Then it says the term mvbodoria.png is not recognized as the name of a commandlet, function, script file, or operable program. Check the spelling of the name, or if a path was included, verify that the path is correct and try again. So it thinks that we've tried to run a command called mvbodoria.png, not a command that's called move. Now, if I look carefully at the command that I just ran, we can see that I missed a space between the mv part and the argument bodoria.png. To correct it, I can press the up arrow key and use the left arrow key to take the cursor back to where I need to insert the space. By pressing the space bar, I can insert the space, and enter now runs the correct command. No error. It seems to have worked just fine. So, by carefully reading the error message and not just ignoring it, the command line can really help us find and fix our mistakes. The last trick that I want to share with you is that if you can't understand an error message, you can always try Googling it, or show it to someone with more experience of using the command line than yourself. Asking for help is always okay, and the error message will help that person work out what's gone wrong, even if it doesn't make sense to you. And with that, thank you for taking the time to learn about the command line with me. we've covered the importance of the command line for using open source research tools and taken a look at some of the fundamentals, including important commands and how they're structured. I've also introduced you to a few tips and tricks, and we've had a brief look at the importance of error messages and how to start interpreting them. I hope that you find this to be a good start to your command line journey and that it helps lay the groundwork for using open source research tools for amazing investigations. If you have any questions or get stuck, we have a really active and helpful community in our Discord, and you'll find a link to that in the description.